Well, for a seventh time, the GT Cup Europe Championship ventures to Paul Ricard in Le Castellet. You join us here in southern France as we undertake round 4 of this season's championship. 5.822 kilometres in length. That's 15 turns with 9 to the right and 6 to the left to make their way around in this clockwise rotation of the circuit, with 50 minutes to take us through, with a driver change period between minutes 21 to 29. And it's going to be an unbelievable visit to this circuit indeed. 29 degree in terms of air temperature, 42% humidity. We also have 48-degree track temperature. It largely is always a warm weekend, the warmest stop on the calendar here in this series. And speaking of the temperature, because things are heating up at the top of the championship, Ian Rodriguez and Luca Franca coming in as the leaders at the moment. On 62 points they currently stay after reclaiming 2 victories so far through the course of the campaign, with 1 second position as well. They're currently ahead of Ludovico Longoni and Pietro Armani, who are on 45 points. So quite a gap between Ps 1 and 2 in the championship. Lars Zanen in third with Giancarlo Fernandez on 38. They're currently sat at the moment 7 points behind Ludovico Longoni and Pietro Armani, with further back Laura Van den Hengel and Paul Meyer sat in fourth on 35. And Paul Meyer went fastest today in qualifying. He'll be starting on pole position for the Pro-Am partnership of he and Laura Van den Hengel, with our championship leaders joining them on the front row of Ian Rodriguez and Luca Franca. George Morgan, your commentator, here in the commentary box alongside me, as always, is Chris Stevens.
Hello, George, and we've got some additional fun for this one. The Greystone GT McLaren Artura here with us this weekend. It's Ryan James who qualified the car, sharing it with Ollie Webb, who some of you might remember from GT Open competition last year for the Greystone outfit. They've brought that car with them for this weekend, and it is a second outing for a Artura in this championship after we had one at Spa as well. And nice to see the depth of manufacturers growing for this multi-mark cup level championship for cars that you would normally find in one make competitions, such as Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, the McLaren Artura, the Lamborghini Super Trofeo as well. And we would normally be seeing Ferrari challenge machinery from both the 488 and 296 model, but unfortunately our championship leading team of Motor Motorsports not here with us this weekend, and potentially for the foreseeable future, owing to some issues with the parent company of the Nuremberg-based dealership.
Yeah, they will not be taken to the grid for this round here at Le Castellet Paul Ricard. So therefore now we're -1 manufacturer. For the first time in a long time we haven't had Ferraris on the grid.
2023.
Yeah,
was the last time. The first. Well, no, that was when.
Well, the first time when the Mertels.
So it would have been the end of the 2022 season. Just while we're going through any changes on this grid, we are wishing all the best to Mauro Trentin after a horrifying crash in Friday practice yesterday. I saw him go backwards into the barriers, braking for the chicane halfway down the Mistral. He was airlifted to Toulon Hospital for further checks, and the latest update we've had is that well, all things considered, he's pretty okay. He's responding well. He's been having conversations with his family, and all in all seems very well. So maybe a little bit of a wait before we see him back at the wheel of a racing car. In that meantime, Mauro and co, we wish you all the best.
We certainly do. Obviously, best wishes from everyone here from GT Sport Organisation and GT Cup Europe in itself, as now we see the 22 taking to the grid. Ludovico Longoni starting on the second row in third. 5 minutes being declared by the marshals as they look to get set ready for the start of this race, having final conversations with the team in preparation for what will be, I'm sure, a very busy fourth round of the championship. We only have 2 more to go after this, a trip to Barcelona and then to Monza, of course, at the end of the campaign. And at the moment, to be in front of the championship at this stage here, Chris, with Ian Rodriguez and Luca Franca, 62 points in front right now. And just to add to that, 17 points is the gap between them and Longoni and Armani in second.
Yeah, and they are second and third on the grid as well, and running the same handicap for this race as well of 5 seconds. So it's a straight fight between them. And we would expect one of them to be our overall winner at the end of it as silver class cars. The car starting on pole position, that one right there, is a Pro-Am car. Another qualifying masterclass from Paul Meyer. When he hands the car over to Laura van den Hengel, you would expect the silver class cars to close in on her, as she is the bronze in that entry. So, yeah, game on in the championship still. We're entering the second half of the championship now, and this is one of those two contenders for the overall victory. Ian Rodriguez, the Guatemalan, and ahead of its nearest championship rival as well, of Ludovico Longoni.
Of course, Ian Rodriguez, Luca Franca have been very much the story in terms of leading the championship. There is the car starting P3 of Ludovico Longoni, second in the championship, with Pietro Armani jumping into the car during the driver change. 44 is H. de Bello from Brazil for GDL Racing Porsche. He'll be hoping for yet another big race as well here this time around too. So far this season has captured 3 points finishes, all starting all the way back at Portimao. There's Stinas Longin as well from Belgium. Of course, Nicolas Salins will be alongside him for the driver change period as well. We then move further back, the 56 of Diego Nunes. Peter Furter will be hopping in place of him later on during the driver switch, as well as part of the LMR crew, who have 2 entries here for this weekend. As always, the 33, Franvale Bugliotti, the Argentinian. Welcome him back as well as part of the Q1 track racing group. And we're looking for a big start. Q1, of course, have a grand legacy in this championship. You think of names like Jan Larison, Giancarlo Fernandez, who also returns too, starting 8th place, also part of silver class. And we'll be looking to jump up through the Pro-Ams and also the Am of H. de Mello. Of course, you've got 2 silver drivers like him in Ps 2 and 3. And here comes the LMR Motorsport, the other pairing. Leandro Martins behind the wheel. Dieter Schweppes will be joining him too. This car was very busy during the winter in terms of the Formula Winter Series. Of course, it would have been the GT Winter Series for them. Fernando Navarrete starting P10. Of course, a former Mertel driver with Ferrari a couple of seasons ago, but now embracing Porsches. Yeah, now this time around, Chris.
Yeah, made that switch in the middle of last season, and much preferring life in the Porsche, which is by far the most popular model for this category. There's a look at the McLaren Artura, the Greystone GT run machine. It's double duty for the British outfit this weekend. Of course, still running their GT3 McLaren in the older sibling series, the International GT Open.
Yeah, getting word that apparently it's raining down on the track as well. Let's run through the highlights of our last visit at Hockenheimring. It was a great start for Paul Meyer, who got away well. A little bit of a moment as well for the car belonging to Stinas Longin and Nicolas Salins, but straight away, Luca Franca, or shall I say the combination of Rodriguez and Franca, trying to move up the order in their bid for yet another victory this season. Of course, eventually we would see a big crash here with Laura van den Hengel colliding with the Q1 track racing car of Giancarlo Fernandez in our last race. But the battles continued elsewhere on the grid as well here at Hockenheimring. Eventually, it would be the combination of Luca Franca and Ian Rodriguez taking victory and lifting the winning trophies aloft on the podium as well, continuing their run at the top of the championship. Race 2 got underway as well. The 22 Porsche coming side by side with the Mertel Ferrari through turn 1. Another spin there for the championship leader of Luca Franca as they made their way through towards Parabolica. The Q1 track racing going sideways, coming around, so many cars had to dodge and weave through. We then saw, of course, Paul Meyer take the latter stint, going side by side with the championship leader of the Rodriguez-Franca combination, coming down towards the start-finish line. But it would be a Mertel victory with Simone Patrinicola taking it alongside Luca De Marchi after the last race of that weekend. This is how the championship now looks as a result. Ian Rodriguez and Luca Franca on 62 points. They are clear by 17 ahead of Ludovico Longoni and Pietro Armani. Lars Zanen and Giancarlo Fernandez in third on 38, with Laura van den Hengel and Paul Meyer just behind them. Well, we're closing up to race time now, folks. The formation lap now firmly underway. Paul Meyer leading the field off, and we'll run you through the complete grid classification. Here is starting grid. Paul Meyer starting from pole position alongside Ian Rodriguez, championship leader on the front row. Third place on the second row, Ludovico Longoni starts third for Porsche 992 GT3 Cup competition with H. De Mello joining him, of course the highest AM in the field. Stinas Longin in fifth alongside Diego Nunez in sixth. Of course, representing LMR Motorsport. We also then have Franveo Bugliotti, the Argentinian, alongside Goncalo Fernandez for Q1 Track Racing Porsche in 8th place. Also part of the silver classification, with Leandro Martins, also part of LMR, in 9th on the 5th row of the grid, joining Fernando Navarrete in 10th place. Next up in 11th is Gianluca Gheorghi in 11th place with Ryan James as part of the new McLaren Artura Trophy Evo that's making its debut this weekend. 13th place for Giacomo Giabergia, and he'll be starting on that row, 7th row of the grid, alongside Nicholas van Dierendonk, who returns for Q1 as well. Davide Scanicchio starts 15th, alongside him Riccardo Romagnoli in 16th place. Then move further down to P17 on the grid. Sebastian Fortuna will be joining Camel Perrion on the 9th row of the grid. Then down to row 10, only one car on that row, and it will be Benjamin Cook in his debut appearance here in the GT Cup Europe competition, as now the drivers make their way down through towards Scene Corner out of the Mistral. Paul Meyer is obviously going to be looking for a big start. Chris looking to try and launch the gap before Lauren van den Hengel steps in, but it's going to be very hard to keep Rodriguez in behind. Obviously, they're only serving 5 seconds this weekend.
Yeah, and Paul Meyer's going to have to serve 15 when he comes in, so he needs 10 seconds. Now, this race has been declared wet. We've had reports of rain. This is supposedly where the rain is, and I can't quite believe it at the moment, because looking at that and also looking out the window, I can see a lot of sun out there, so maybe just a very, very brief passing shower, but nonetheless, the race declared wet, and I'm sure they'll have just explored the grip levels out there throughout that corner so that when they arrive at racing speed, they're not caught out by anything too terribly dramatic.
Yeah, Luca Franco, we just saw him picture there, obviously will be awaiting his stint in the car when Ian Rodriguez comes in. Of course, the Guatemalan will be starting on the front row, trying to chase after Paul Meyer, which is going to be a really big mission in itself as we take a look inside the Burgers Motorsport garage. Of course, Hans Wies Motorsport crew that are watching on, obviously connections of Paul Meyer and Laura van den Hengel, who will be hoping they'll have a big breakthrough weekend here this time as they come through the final sector. Ian Rodriguez, of course, has done extremely well so far this campaign, and alongside Luca Franca, they'll be in full pursuit of the title. 2 wins under their belt so far as they now venture out of the final corner and down the long straight. They'll all be looking to the lights now as we await to go green, and it's pedal to the metal, and it's go, 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 go. Great start for Paul Meyer, gets away well, so does Ian Rodriguez. They run down through towards turn 1, so it's side by side between the 2 Porsches. Further back, we have Ludovico Longoni in between 2 cars as well. A very, very big line taken there from the 911 Porsche of Leandro Martins, but it is Paul Meyer. Meyer leads the way. Ian Rodriguez dropping down a little bit. Ludovico Longoni now becoming the threat as we run on board with the LMR Motorsport car, now being pursued by Stinas Longin as they head down in towards the first chicane. It's now going to be nose to tail as they weave downwards. You can see there the Teach Straps Leandro Martins car. Of course, Leandro Martins at the wheel of it at the moment, just trying to find the right line coming through the next double right-hander. And then, of course, we did just see there too Stinas Longin just trying to find an avenue coming through out of this next left-hander down the Mistral straight, but it's still Meyer, Rodriguez, Longoni, De Mello, Martins in 5th, Franvel Bugliotti up into 6th place, and not a great start from Fernandez, who now moves down to 9th, Chris.
A great stuff from Leandro Martins in those first few corners to not only get onto the back of his class rivals, but actually split them. So Leandro Martins, the LM in LMR, his new team for this year, reigning AM champion, of course, with Dieter Streps. They haven't finished outside the top 2 all year, and he's now running 2nd in his class. But great stuff from Paul Meyer. He's clearing away of Ian Rodriguez, Ludovico Longoni. H. De Mello holds on to the class lead in AM, as we see Diego Nunez there trying to keep 2nd position in Pro-Am ahead of Stinas Longin.
Yeah, that's going to be a mission in itself. Obviously know how good Stinas Longin really is, and is actually taking a tighter line coming through in towards the Bousset. They were side by side there briefly, and I think they still are as they come down through towards the next left-hander. We ride on board now with the LMR here this time in the 56 Porsche of Diego Nunes on the back of Franvel Bugliotti, the Argentinian, in the familiar grey and luminous yellow covered livery, just coming through in the final sector. There he is now, peeling through towards the next left with Stinas Longin for company as well. Goncalo Fernandez on the back of Longin also. And just trying to make his way around as they almost go side by side. And there you can see once again Fernandez, and I believe that was Georgi who was actually in front of him coming through turn 9. Stinas Longin, as we now see him making his way down the straight. It is still Meyer out in front, Rodriguez in behind him too. Longoni making up 2 silver cars inside the top 3 as now we see 2 cars going wheel to wheel, heading down through towards turn 1. The 54 of Georgi now ahead of the 19 of Navarrete. Navarrete having a look around the outside, but obviously not the optimal line in order to make that overtake past Georgi for P10. So they are as they are, coming through into the next lap with 47 and 18 to go.
Yeah, great stuff there from Fernandez at the end of that lap. So the gap for Paul Meyer about 3/4 of a second, with Rodriguez and Longoni separated by about 1.7. And there you saw H. de Mello there. Right, this is the move again from Fernandez. So it was there on Gianluca Giorgi there in the Ebi Motors car. So right round the outside, I've got Fernandez in the Silver Class car. Silver Class sort of by default, really, the former rally driver. But the youngster coming out of Porsche Cup racing in Iberia. And still very new to racing, only in his 2nd season of competition in circuit racing, that is.
Yeah, just saw the LMR Motorsport car of Diego Nunes, still with Stinas Longin all over his tail at the moment. There they are now as they come through the final sector. We're taking a look now in Sector 3 where Paul Meyer now enters the fold. And of course still our current race leader, and has done so brilliantly. Of course the gap though only 7/10 between himself and Ian Rodriguez, which is not ideal for the Burgers Motorsport team, because Ludovico Longoni, whilst of course he's stretched out by 3 seconds away from the top players, Paul Meyer won't really want Ian Rodriguez to come, even though they're not fighting for the same class. Of course, overall, if you're a Pro-Am driver, you still would love to get an overall win.
I mean, he's losing 10 seconds to both of those cars in the pit stop anyway, so there's no point fighting them. He's going to be more concerned with where Diego Nunes and Stinas Longin are, his 2 nearest Pro-Am rivals. Yeah, it's nice to get the overall win, but at the end of the day, you're still only getting the same amount of points in your own championship. So that's what they're here to focus on. That's what they're fighting for, leading the championship there as it stands. As cars made their way out of turn 2. You see, we've still got Diego Nunes right up behind Franvel Bugliotti, the GDL driver. Franvel Bugliotti in that fight for the AM Championship, currently 3rd in his class at the moment, behind Martins and H. de Mello. So it's actually top 3 in the AM Championship, all line astern on the racetrack at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely right, all line astern. And coming through the next left there, you can see, of course, H. de Mello further up. There is, of course, Franvel Bugliotti, of course, just in behind Leandro Martins. He's got Diego Nunes, though, still for company. As we now see the Argentinian go very wide, coming through in towards the Mistral chicane. Out of it comes Paul Meyer. As now it's wheel to wheel between Franvel Bugliotti and indeed Nunes, who is just in behind, opened the door a little bit, and I think again firing that warning shot in battle for AM, well, what will be a move actually for P6 overall on the AM P3 driver, as they now fly down through towards Scene Corner, riding on board again with the 56 of Nunes now, as the Brazilian flies through the next right-hander. A little swapper there, just had to correct the wheel, correct the steering just a slight bit, but Franvel Bugliotti just moving a little bit further up the road as they head into the braking zone at Bousset. Now he runs a little bit wide there, perhaps there from Franvel Bugliotti, but the door ultimately slams shut as we now pan across back to Longoni in 3rd place.
And already 3.8 back from Ian Rodriguez, who's hanging on to the back of Paul Meyer very nicely, who, must be said, has been the benchmark for everyone else to try and hit this year, not just in qualifying, but in terms of his race pace as well. He has a habit of clearing off into the sunset in these races. But Rodriguez is keeping him very honest at the moment, and actually faster by nearly 0.4 of a second, and the fastest lap of the race as well, at 2:08.2 for Ian Rodriguez, in his pursuit of the race leader. But again, he'll know that Paul's losing 10 seconds to him in the pit stop phase anyway. So I don't think he's going to give him too much of a hard time unless he starts to feel like he's being massively held up. Of course, it helps a lot that Longoni in the car behind is also taking the same amount of handicap.
Yeah, and also on top of that now, he's got a 4.5 second gap, you know, and now it's pushing out to 5 seconds now between Longoni and Rodriguez higher up the order. So it's really starting to grow. It's really starting to expand now. And obviously 4.5 seconds to be precise between Longoni and Rodriguez. If Rodriguez keeps things up or keeps this particular thing up, as we now see a bit of contact, and the 19 is ran as Fernando Navarrete, who has taken some impact from Gianluca Giorgi, who is currently 10th in our classification. Of course, Navarrete, as a result, dropping down to 17th place.
So did manage to get it going again, but I'm sure the stewards will be taking a look at that. So Rodriguez flying through Scene Corner there in his pursuit of Paul Meyer. Got to keep an eye on the track limits on the exit of turn 10 through Scene Corner.
Looks like Meyer's now starting to dig deep now because he's purple in the first sector on this particular lap. The only driver actually operating in the 34s right now, 34.8 in that first sector. In the middle sector again, personal best, 38.758. Of course, remember, as quite rightly Chris stated, the fastest lap was put together by Ian Rodriguez last time out of a 2:08.207. It looks like that's going to be firmly ripped away now in this very early stage of the race, with Paul Meyer coming out of the final corner. Obviously, he's very busy trying to gap Rodriguez right now. But whilst, of course, Meyer is fastest, it does allow Rodriguez still to tow because he's only 5/10 off. But now make that 9/10 now as he goes purple in that final sector, Paul Meyer. So it's 2:08.018 now, the fastest lap so far, with Rodriguez getting a very nice tow.
So, 41 minutes to go. 4 laps completed so far. And this battle between Diego Nunes and Franville Bugliotti and the rest of them continues to rage on. But reminding you, Diego Nunes and Stines Longin are the pros in those Pro-Am cars. And so, in theory, they should be getting slower in the second part of the race, which does not bode too well for their overall position when you consider that they are behind 3 AM cars at the moment, 2 of which are running solo, H. Domino and Franville Bugliotti, and Leandro Martins. He won't mind me saying that his teammate Dieter Sveps is quicker than him because, well, I think it's widely considered he's the fastest bronze driver in the field. And with good reason as well. He's sort of one of these bronze drivers by default because he took a couple of years out of racing. So was regraded and has come back and very much one of the top bronze drivers out there at the moment. So, yeah, Leandro Martins, after a great start to this race, getting up to 2nd in class and getting ahead of Franville Bugliotti, definitely a key moment in this race. And let's see if these pro drivers can force their way through as well. Of course, remember, Goncalo Fernandez, also a pro driver as well, bearing in mind he's in the silver class category.
Yeah, currently 0.7 away from Stines Longin at the moment. So all 3 of this trio really are trying to get ahead of the AM runners of Bugliotti at the moment. You just see there as we ride on board with Nunes, just a 10th away from Bugliotti, who I think is finding perhaps a little moment of weakness there from Martins, who didn't look overly happy coming into the final corner at Pont, but has managed to find the momentum to gather some delta up and try and push onwards, as now we see Stines Longin on the back of Diego Nunes on the run down through towards turn 1. So this is obviously imperative for Stines Longin because he can't afford to wait behind too much longer with the what we should be considering the slower runners just in front of them here. Obviously Longin now still remains down in 8th place, but Nunes defending well against him, I have to say. So it's really going to take a lot right now for Stines Longin to actually move into that 7th spot and challenge those AM cars in front.
Diego Nunes, the Brazilian, his teammate also from Brazil, but a prolific racer in stock car Brazil, and also TCR South America as well. trying his hand at Cup car racing at the moment. And Stinus Longin, known more for his antics in the Whelen NASCAR Euro Series, which he was a class champion a few years ago. So it's really tightening up here into the Mistral chicane. And think about all the different teams we've got represented here as well, between GDL, LMR and Q1 Track Racing. In fact, it's 2 from each of them running from 4th down to 9th at the moment. But H. DeMello in the lead in Pro-Am, 3.2 clear of this battle. And now car 33, Franville Bugliotti has been given a reprimand for a start procedure infringement. Not sure what that specifically was, but the 3rd place car in AM, no sporting penalty being given.
No, and obviously the incident in question between Navarrete and, of course, Gianluca Giorgi still under investigation as well at the moment. Of course, we remember that one from earlier on. We witnessed the replay of Navarrete being spun around as now we see them coming down in towards the heavy braking zone at Pont Corner again. Franvel Bugliotti going ultimately very defensive, trying to keep the LMR in behind of Diego Nunes as they power out of the final corner now. And down the long straight, can Nunes get the drag on the way down towards turn 1? Looks like Franvel Bugliotti might have got a better run heading in towards the first corner. Stinus Longin also looking for an avenue himself as well as they come in towards the first corner here, now coming in towards the left. And with 36 minutes and 30 to go, Nunes flashing all over the back of the 33 of Franvel Bugliotti. Of course, in the AM class, it's Pro-Am and AM meeting out on track and drifting right over to the other side of the circuit now as Bugliotti goes ultra defensive. Coming into the chicane, though, took a little bit of an advantageous line through that first sector now, and in comes Stinus Longin now straight up the inside. So close to contact with Diego Nunes. Went very late on the brakes, coming into the right-hander when venturing through towards turns 4 and 5.
He's got to run here, though, George, there's Nunes. He's gone right round the outside. He's had to go off the track to try and get it done. But Franville Bugliotti really checked up in the middle of turns 6 and 7. So that's given Nunes a clear run. Might also give Stinus Longin the momentum to drag past as well. I think that front splitter is scraping along the ground a little bit on that LMR machine, the blue and green number 56. So we're going to see it again. He had a moment, did Franville Bugliotti, and Diego Nunes needed no second invitation. And, well, he had to go off the track to do it. But in fairness, he was rather forced to do that because Bugliotti was not leaving him any space at all.
No, there was quite a bit of pressure that Bugliotti was under coming through the entirety of the first sector. We noted it coming through turns 4 and 5. And when they ventured in towards sector 2, that's where it really opened up on the outset of turn 6 into turn 7. So now as a result, we've seen Bugliotti, unfortunately, lose 2 places. He could lose another here because Goncalo Fernandez is right on his tail as well. And that is, of course, another silver class car. Of course, part of the same class as the likes of Ed Rodriguez and Ludovico Longoni, and is now taking alternate lines in comparison to the Argentinian in front of him. And just look at this, very defensive-minded from Bugliotti, taking a narrower inside line. It was a wider line for Goncalo Fernandez, which he'll hope will help him with the run heading down through towards turn 1. Doesn't look like it's on the cards just yet, but Bugliotti has sacrificed a lot of slipstream here, and it could yet fall into the pocket of Goncalo Fernandez coming through turn 1. Giabergia has overtaken Giorgi as well over P10, so that's Giacomo Giabergia now moving up a spot in AM class. That's incidentally P4 in AM right now as they make their way down through towards the next chicane at turns 3 and 4. And then in towards turn 5 to then later bring an end to the first sector. And once again, it looks like Franvel Bugliotti coming through this first sector is now going to come under fire because here comes Goncalo Fernandez. A wide line taken by Bugliotti. The door was wide open and walking straight through it was Goncalo Fernandez in silver class. And now he'll move up into 8th place overall.
Yeah, nicely done. So down the Mistral, Franvel Bugliotti. Try and come back from that. The Argentinian still holding his position in class, though. Again, a great intra-team battling here in GT Cup Europe with Q1 Track Racing going up against GDL. And it's the Belgian outfit that came on top in this particular squabble. The outfit based in Drijbekenweg. Big dive on the inside. Bit of compliance from Franville Bugliotti to get that one done.
Left the door wide open, didn't he? Really, and Fernandez was quite happy to oblige and walked straight through it, and therefore moves into 8th place. But with some time to find out on Stina's Longin, 2.4 seconds between them. Paul Meyer, 2.8 ahead of Rodriguez now, so has managed to advance the gap. As we now watch as the cars make their way down through towards turns 1. There is Paul Meyer with the gap now expanding to 3.2 now with Rodriguez as he crosses the line. And we've got the driver change window happening in around 3 minutes and 45, so won't be long before they start considering swaps. But obviously the likes of Paul Meyer, he's of course going to go the lengthy stint, take it as close to the end as possible. Paul Meyer, incidentally, over the last lap, purple in that 3rd sector as well. It was a 2:07.776, which is actually, despite a personal best being put up by Ian Rodriguez, it was still around 4 tenths or 3.5 tenths slower than Paul Meyer at the top of the shop.
So the gap now 3.3 seconds between race leader Paul Meyer and Ian Rodriguez in 2nd place. But remember, he's gaining back 10 seconds on that Burgers Motorsport by Hans Weiss Motorsport car.
Going even further back as well, 10.1 away from Ian Rodriguez. And over the last lap, he was lapping in the 209.6s, which was actually 1.5 seconds slower than Rodriguez's last lap. A little reminder of the colour codes as well, if you want to stay up to date with the categories. Obviously, it's silver in silver, blue for Pro-Am, and green for Am class, as well as you can see on the left-hand side, and that is how the timing tower operates. So if you're wondering who is top of Pro-Am right now, and indeed top overall at this stage, is, of course, Paul Meyer. At the moment, we now see some side-by-sides, this time between Stina's Longin, and once again, looks like Diego Nunez, who's in the fight here now. This is a battle over P6, as up the inside goes Stina's Longin, and he'll move into that 6th spot now, coming through Scene Corner. That was very masterfully done. Nunez all over the back of him still, might yet look to return the serve, but no, Stina's Longin now moves into 6th place.
It's great. Diego Nunez provided a lot of the entertainment so far in this race, hasn't he?
He certainly has.
Whether it's being overtaken or doing the overtaking, either way, involved in a battle. It's great stuff. And so, of course, that is a swap for class position as well in Pro-Am, with Longin taking 2nd place in that category away from Diego Nunez. So Q1 Track Racing again moving up 1 position, and now he's got the Am car ahead of him of Leandro Martins for 5th position overall. Gap between the top 2 in that category now 4 seconds with H. DeMello. Just saw him going through the bottom left of the picture. That's the visual representation. Then Stina's Longin and Diego Nunez fighting over 2nd in Am, but also really, really wanting to clear the Leandro Martins car in front of them. You see how much more curb Longin was able to take there through turn 2. That's part of the difference between some of the Ams and the pro drivers, just how much more they're willing to push the extremities of the racetrack. They'll go a little bit wider on entry, take that bit more curb, push the track limits just a little bit harder.
Could ultimately see as well the line Stina's was taken there in comparison to Leandro coming into turn 5, obviously out of turn 4. As we now take a look at the move, this was the P6 manoeuvre for Stina's Longin up the inside through Scene Corner, as easy as you like, past Diego Nunez, and brilliant, confident and concise effort there from Stina's Longin. And his mission now is to take down the 911 Porsche of Leandro Martins. They now come out of the Mistral chicane this time on the run down through towards Scene Corner. Once again, could Stina's Longin once again make a move at turn 10 as he did the last lap on Diego Nunez, and again it's against a Brazilian driver partnership, as now Leandro Martins looks to try and make its way through. See at the moment doing well to maintain the place, but Longin is not one to go down without a fight, and the Belgian partnership will be looking to advance their charge up into P5 and enter the higher end placings. Of course, currently sat 2nd in Pro-Am at the moment ahead of Diego Nunez, so that's still an ongoing battle for Pro-Am P2 at the moment as well. So that made that move by Longin all the more imperative. Of course, Paul Meyer still acres up the road and leading the way. It's now up the inside. Goes Stina's Longin now, so he moves past, but into the pits comes Leandro Martins. So the driver change window is now on.
Coming in at the earliest opportunity there was Leandro Martins, as is Ludovico Longoni. And so he'll be handing the car over to Pietro Armani. And remember, he'll take 5 seconds of handicap there as well. The 911 here will be stationary for an additional 20 seconds as well, such as their success. Now, if you're watching GT Cup Europe for the first time and thinking, handicap, what is this, a golf game? Well, it works in a similar fashion because it is based on the success of your most recent results. So if you have recently scored a second place finish, you'll be stationary for an additional 5 seconds. If you've had a win recently, you'll have an additional 10 seconds added to the minimum stationary time. Into the pits comes Ryan James as well in the McLaren Artura, so Ollie Webb will now be taking over that car to the checkered flag.
Yep, so they'll be next taking over the car. We'll see Ollie Webb, very experienced behind the wheel of racing cars, a European Le Mans Series champion back in 2014, 24 Hours of Le Mans. In 2014, he finished in LMP2 third. As we now watch as the Hans Weiss Motorsport car of Paul Meyer now makes his way around the course. Of course, he'll be going the distance if he can. There's still 5 minutes and 55, so 2 laps potentially in the offing here for Paul Meyer before he comes in, I think, Chris?
Potentially. Well, the lap times at the moment about 2:07. So, yes, you're looking at about that because you have to be past the pit lane entry line by the time that timer hits 0. And so it will close with 21 minutes remaining. The Scuderia Villorba-Corsa Lamborghini in. SVC here running 2 cars. They are responsible for the Fimes Porsche, which has just come into pit lane there. Ian Rodriguez now handing over to Luca Franca, the TCR Italy and Clio Cup convert. And now moving up to GT competition.
Current championship leader as well.
Yes, of course. In that number 91 kart, Paul Meyer continues to stretch his legs. He's got 24 seconds of clear track behind him now with cars that have not yet pitted. And actually, he's just coming up on the driver that I kind of hoped would be doing qualifying this morning, Ollie Webb, to see a bit of a shootout between these two drivers, because so far in qualifying this year, if Paul Meyer's been in it, then it's been his world and everyone else is just living in it. And I'd like to have seen if Ollie could have given him a run for his money. But alas, we shall have to leave that to Reddit to argue that one out, I'm sure. It's the kind of thing they'd do on there, isn't it? So, 91 heading back out onto the racetrack. Luca Franca now at the wheel of the championship leading Fimes team Porsche by SVC. And he should come out ahead of Pietro Armani. He had a decent advantage over that car before they came into the pit lane, and they were serving the same amount of handicap. So there shouldn't be too much difference between them. They're all looking very good for the championship leaders at the moment, but we'll see if anything changes with Armani now at the wheel of the car, of course. This is Paul Meyer continuing on for another lap and 3.5 minutes left. So yes, he will have to come in this next time around.
Yeah, definitely will. He makes his way towards the line now, chasing after Ollie Webb inside his McLaren Artura, now heading through towards turn 1. Of course, remember, Meyer still yet to box, whereas Ollie Webb has already gone through the pit stop procedure, having had it handed over to him by Ryan James after his opening stint. Peroni also out on his outlap, as is Franvel Bugliotti, who is, of course, running solo in the 33 Porsche. As our race leader Paul Meyer now makes his way through the first, and it looks like Ollie Webb's taken a bit of an ambitious line through the off-track segment, so obviously gaining a slight time advantage there. In now to the pits comes the 56, and that, of course, belongs to Diego Nunes. Peter Furter will be standing at the ready to take over, and that's a 10-second stop they're going to have to take due to the handicap. Yeah,
and also the Q1 track racing car, number 11, coming in as well. Now, this is critical because that's for second and third in Pro-Am, and the number 11 Q1 track racing car is unhandicapped. So Nicolas Salins should, in theory, be coming out ahead of the 56 of Peter Furter when he hands over that car. And hasn't updated on the timing yet, his name, but we'll check that out later. Lars Zanen also taking over in the 53 Q1 track racing car as well, the silver class car that was started by Juan Carlo Fernandez. That's going to be critical to see how the overall podium plays out. But just thinking about Paul Meyer here, should come out somewhere between Luca Franca and Pietro Armani, who is about 18 seconds behind his class rival and championship rival as well. A minute and 30 or so left on the driver change window, and so those top 2 cars that haven't yet come in will have to do so now. Paul Meyer peels right, and we'll get it down to the 60 kilometers an hour speed limit. Bit of side-by-side on the start-finish straight, but this is the erstwhile race leader getting ready to hand over the car and be stationary for an additional 15 seconds before the Iron Dame supported Laura van den Hengel makes her way back out onto the racetrack in pursuit of another Pro-Am victory.
Yeah, here she comes now, door open, and she'll now look to take Paul Meyer out of the car and will take her place behind the wheel this time around to take the remaining stint now for this race. 21 and 48 to go. And at the moment, of course, remember the Burgers Motorsport car with that advanced lead out in front. H. de Mello also in the pits too. Luca Franca having already stopped. There he is now, making his way through the Bousset section out of scene corner, and now making his way through the remaining corners of the final sector. So we'll see where they compare as they come across the line.
Does it look like it's raining out there, George?
There did look like a little bit of rain.
There was a little bit of rain, and I could. It was like I could see the tyre tracks being left in the
no
in
wiper
the
movement at the moment
as well. No. Well, we'll see. I mean, turn 11 was where it was being reported at the start of the race, and that's where it looked a little bit tricky.
No release just yet for...
got to keep that stationary time, and this will be...
Oh, that's Franvel Bugliotti.
Yes.
The 33. The Argentinian has come to a stopper. Now here we go. Laura van den Hengel leaving the pit. Well, it looks like she might yet jump. Will she? No, not quite. Luca Franca will take the overall race lead, of course, being part of silver class. That is probably how it should be. But regardless of that, van den Hengel, obviously Laura van den Hengel rejoining the circuit, still with that Pro-Am lead.
So where has Franvel Bugliotti parked at the side of the road? Critically, what does this mean for the championship as well? Because he was third in the standings going into this weekend. That is very, very difficult for his championship hopes. H. de Mello coming out in the lead in the AM category, as it was before the driver change window, despite 10 seconds of additional handicap. But of course, the car in second place had 10 seconds more than that as well. So Dieter Sreps has actually done very well to hang on to top spot in the AM category there. He's just ahead of Nathan Brauns, who's just taken over the car, the number 57, that was started by Nicolas van Dierendonck, one of the team managers at Q1 Track Racing.
Of course, Peter Furter there behind the wheel of the 56 in place of Diego Nunez. They had to service 10 seconds. Team managers for car 54 to report to race control immediately, as we see some side-by-sides here with the 21 of Florentin Cescu and also the 19 of Todd Souza. And it looks like Souza has the inside line, but over and round coming out of turn 1. And Todd Souza, in his first start this campaign, finding himself off track through turn 1, just oversteering the car through turn 1, and unfortunately off the circuit, and that will give Florentin Cescu that P15 back.
Battle for 7th position in the AM category as well, and this is the battle between Lars Zanen and Nicola Salens. That's the silver class car going past the Pro-Am Q1 track racing car. Of course, that is two cars out of the same outfit in different classes, and it is Nicola Salens, the bronze driver, who was yielding there to the superior silver class drivers. We're going to see this moment for Todd Souza again. Got the move done, but too much curb at turn 1, and then loops the GDL car around. Sorry, the Tsunami Racing Team car around. Yeah. Not running their traditional colours here with that car. It
does look more GDL, doesn't it?
Yeah, the San Marino squad.
Yeah, see now finds himself behind Florentin Sescu, but also Luca Mariatinesi. As we now see the replay again of the moment between the 53 of Lars Zeinen and Nicholas Salins. Of course, Salins not in this fight in terms of a class situation, so I don't think he'll be too upset with that. Laura van den Hengel is the concern for him, as now we see the 57 belonging, of course, to Nathan Brauns, trying to keep the 56 of Peter Vierter in behind, and Vierter obviously looking to try and move up into 7th place, ideally, and try and get past the 2 AM cars. Of course, Dieter Schweppes currently AM P2, Nathan Brauns obviously AM P3. Not really in a fight with Pro-Am at the moment, but obviously would like to get back to proximity of Dieter Schweppes, really, for Ps1 and Ps2 in that battle.
Actually, Nathan Brauns just passed Peter Vierter for 8th overall. 10-second penalty for car number 54. That's Luigi Peroni, but that would have been for when Gianluca Giorgi spun around the other car at turn 15 earlier on. And so where is that car at the moment? 13th position overall and 10.0 ahead of Cosimo Papi. So, actually Papi is closing down on Peroni.
No, so I can tell you that team managers for car 7, which is Laura van den Hengel, and 91 of Luca Franca, have been asked to report to race control immediately.
Interesting.
Could be something to do with the pit stop window, Chris. I mean, generally, they are very cautious and obviously very scrutineering. They always scrutineer the time that is being served through the course of the handicaps that they have to serve as well, on top of the premeditated pit time of 70 seconds. So, yeah, these are things that they keep an eye on. But I don't think there was anything out on track that necessarily needs to lead to a report. At least not yet, anyway.
Yeah, nothing we saw. So, could be something in pit lane, but, well, potential trouble for the top 2 in this race as it stands. Let's see how Laura's pace at the moment is compared to Pietro Armani in 3rd, losing about 3 and a bit seconds a lap. Remember, she is the bronze driver, so the gap's 6.3. So, spin there for Ollie Webb.
Yeah, Oliver Webb spinning through just before Pont, actually. And actually coming through out of Galaban corner through Virage de la Tour, but on the run in towards Pont, just rear it. Well, whether there was any contact, it looked like he did it on his own. A rare moment, though, for Ollie Webb there, Chris.
Yeah, I must confess, I was looking at the other screen at our timing tower. Hopefully we get a replay of that and just confirm if he was pushed or jumped. But certainly not ideal there for Ollie Webb, who's currently 5th in Pro-Am. And trying to chase after Giacomo Gibergia, I should say, sorry. And Fabio Babini, who's now aboard the Tsunami Racing Team number 78 Porsche. Back on double duties, of course, is Fabio, with his GT Open campaign as well with Johannes Zelga. It's Davide Scanicchio he shares the car with here in that GT Cup. But there's race leader, Luca Franca, nearly 8 seconds to the good now over Laura van den Hengel, coming up on some traffic as well. And last time around it was 2:10 for Luca against a 2:08 for Pietro Armani. So I'll wait to see if that is indicative of Luca's pace. Otherwise, that 12-second gap in the last 14 minutes or so of this race could well be under threat for this Fimes team car. Remember, those top 2 Silver-class cars, those are the top 2 in the championship as well.
Yeah, and they'll be hoping to do battle again out on circuit. 4.2 between Armani and Laura van den Hengel at the moment. And if you add those 2 together, obviously you're looking at around 13 seconds between Armani and Franca. In fact, maybe a little bit less than that now as they cross the stripe. It's actually only 10.9 now, you'd fathom, between Armani and Franca.
It's exactly 10.9.
Yeah, almost bang on. My mathematics paid off as we watched them come through the first sector. H. de Mello now into 5th ahead of Nicholas Salins. So that's an update on our timing screen, as you can see on the left-hand side. Laura van den Hengel currently 7.9 away from Franca at the moment. Last lap was a 2:11.337, which was just over a second slower over the course of the lap. As we now watch the cars come into close proximity. This is Nicholas Salins chasing after H. de Mello, who managed to move up into 5th ahead of the Pro-Am driver of Seyland, who is, of course, very busy trying to catch up with Laura van den Hengel. Seyland's, incidentally, over the last lap, 2:12.250, which is actually slower than Laura van den Hengel by 1.2 seconds, Chris.
Yeah, so it's Pietro Armani closing in now. He's into the low 2:08s now. And actually, the fastest driver on the racetrack at the moment is Pietro Armani in the number 22. His former single-seater driver in Italian F4 and in Freca. Oh, that's one of the bollards that's been knocked over. And
just in the entry to...
Slap bang on the racing line, braking for that chicane as well. So... someone's had a misadventure out there, but yes, Armani now 1.5 seconds away from Laura van den Hengel for second place overall. I imagine it'll be done on pretty quickly. Oh, quite a squabble going on down there as they rounded up the traffic, and this is Armani about to dispatch of van den Hengel, and well, thought about going around the outside, wasn't totally convinced if he was going to be left some space there, but now on the inside of Virage du Pont, Laura knows that's not her fight. That's the silver class car. She's in a Pro-Am car. She's the bronze in that one as well, so slots back in behind, although Pietro wasn't getting that feeling at all there. So this is Fabio Babini and Peter Furter, two Pro-Am cars, and that's a change for third in that category with the Babini, the Pro, going past Peter Furter, the bronze. And that is now the Tsunami Racing Team car up into a podium position in that category.
Smart move there as well from Fabio Babini. This is the moment between Armani and Laura van den Hengel. We saw a flash of the lights as well from Laura van den Hengel down the home straight. Obviously not happy with something, but heading down into the heavy braking zone. Armani only after one thing, and that is to catch up with Luca Franca because they are looking to do battle over the race lead. I can tell you over the last lap, they were very nearly matching in terms of lap time. 7 thousandths of a second between them over the last lap. 6-second time penalty. And this was my theory, Chris. We obviously heard the team managers were asked to report to race control. We were wondering why. We had a theory that it might have been something to it during the pit stop, and indeed it was.
So 6-second time penalty for the race leading car of Luca Franca. The gap currently 10 seconds. But Pietro Armani has been, on average, about a second a lap quicker.
Yep.
That last lap, he was getting around Laura van den Hengel. On average, it's been about a second quicker. So if he gets to within 6 seconds, it will be a victory for the ZRS Motorsport crew.
And it's it's a green middle sector for Armani as well. He was half a second quicker than Franca in the second sector alone on this current lap. So here's Luca Franca right now. He really needs to really go all guns blazing for the remaining 10 minutes and 20.
But now the question is, George, we saw both 91 and 7 under investigation. The Pro-Am leader.
So what about the 7th place?
Is there going to be a penalty for Laura van den Hengel as well? And how bad will that affect her? So the gap between them is the top two in Pro-Am is about 21 seconds at the moment. And I think the pace is in favour of van den Hengel as it stands. So depending on how big the penalty is, of course, but then you've also got to throw in the fact that Fabio Babini is going gun-ho at the moment as well. This is for the lead in AM, incidentally. H. de Mello defending for all his worth against Dieter Schweppes, who, despite not finishing outside the top 2 all season long, has actually only won once this season alongside Leandro Martins in the AM category for 5th position overall. But remember, Dieter Schweppes, one of the fastest drivers in this category, and it's a 5-second time penalty for the Pro-Am leader.
Yeah,
for less time for less handicap being served. So they've not done that correctly.
Oh,
there's a car parked in the middle of the runoff area at turn 2. It's all kicking off.
It is all kicking off at the moment. A car stagnant inside the first sector is now still Dieter Schweppes. Looks to plumb for the move now as they look to fight over P5 overall. But the AM lead more importantly now as they come through out of turn 6. And through towards turn 7 very shortly, and arguably perhaps a better line taken here by Dieter Schweppes to give him the momentum down the long run in towards the Mistral chicane. He's going to get a nice toe as well, with no help provided to H. de Mello now as they run now, line astern, now heading down through towards the chicane. Here comes Dieter Schweppes now.
Problem though on the H. de Mello car. Look, the front right is smoking away like crazy, and he's lost it under braking. That's got to be related to it. There was smoke coming out the front right corner of that GDL prepared car.
Yeah, it looks like maybe the brakes have gone slightly amiss, maybe overheated, heading through the middle sector. So we'll have to wait and see whether that's going to start plaguing him furthermore, especially coming into the fast sections around
I think it's
again.
the tyre's gone,
It's gone. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's come to, well, it's certainly not helping him in the very fast braking zones. Further back, a flash of the lights also from Nicholas Salins, who is trying to close on Laura van den Hengel, and he can't afford to have any obstacles at the moment.
But that's such a shame for H. de Mello. That's going to compromise him for the rest of this race and cost him potentially the win in the AM category here. Dieter Schweppes has already gone through, and Nicholas Salins now does so as well. So what is coming out of the front right corner there on that 44 machine? I can't tell if it's fluid or if it's smoke off the tyre.
It's hard to tell.
Either way, he's really struggling to turn it. He's coming for the pits. Oh, that's game over, I'm afraid. Well, for H. de Mello, that could have been a third victory of the season. And remember, he is the closest challenger to the LMR pairing of Dieter Schweppes and Leandro Martins in the AM Championship.
Absolutely right. Heading down towards turn 1 now. We now rejoin Nicholas Salins, who has got Dieter Schweppes now for company, or should I say Nathan Brauns, to apologise, and yet...
whatever is coming off of it reduces at low speed, so that makes me think it's smoke.
Yeah.
And he's put a cut in that front right Michelin.
Yeah.
He's out of the car as well. Oh, what a shame.
H. de Mello coming to a grinding halt in the pits and just conversing with the team. Obviously, all of them looking rather forlorn right now, and for good reason. They were running such a good race.
This is the curse of the class leaders today. Penalties for our overall and pro-am leader, and then some sort of front right puncture or cut for the AM leader.
Speaking of which, I mean, the delta's come down between Armani and Frank, and now it's 8.3. Effectively now we're looking at 3 seconds, the gap, Chris.
So, remember 6 seconds.
Oh, 2.
Is
it's 2, not 3.
Is the magic number for Pietro Armani. If he's within 6, he'll inherit the lead at the checkered flag. He doesn't have to pass him on track because of that 6-second time penalty for the handicap not being served correctly by the Fimes team. The way that's usually calculated is however much you missed it by is then doubled for your penalty. So in theory, that should mean it was 3 seconds they missed it by. So just under 6 minutes left to go then, and it's still all to play for the overall outright victory here between Luca Franca and Pietro Armani. The 2 Italians duking it out here with the former single-seater driver Pietro Armani trying to close down the former Clio Cup and TCR racer. But it is not a case of having to close up and pass. It is merely a case of getting within 6 seconds of the race leader. In Pro-Am, Laura van den Hengel continues to lead in that category. She's losing time to Lars Zanen for the overall podium, but it may not yet be enough. They do have a 5-second penalty, so if Lars Zanen closes in by another 4.3 seconds or so, that Q1 track racing car will also end up on the overall podium. And then in the AM category, that's settled down a little bit now with the demise of H. de Mello. I'm afraid it's Dieter Schweppes leading 3.7 seconds to Nathan Brauns. Another time penalty coming in for Babini.
Fabio Babini picking up 5 seconds for causing a collision, which has been obviously put against his name. So unfortunately for Babini, he's going to suffer yet a further demise. Obviously at the moment, Ollie Webb 4.6 behind Babini as it stands, so will move ahead of Babini for P8 should it remain like this until the checkered flag, as Laura van den Hengel now works her way out of the chicane section. Now further back we take a look at the 57 also this time around of Nathan Brauns, who's currently sat in MP2, chasing after Dieter Schweppes, and has also got Nicholas Salins for company. Over the last lap, Salins was a little bit quicker than Van den Hengel, approximately nearly 0.3 of a second, but he's going to need more than that in order to get close enough for that time penalty to really come into effect. Despite Van den Hengel losing time on Armani and also Zanen down in fourth, I mean, they've got a great chance here, Paul Meyer and Laura Van den Hengel, of a P3 podium overall here with 3 minutes and 45, because there's just simply a lot of time for Zanen to try and close down. But we've got to factor in that time less the penalty served, as the 54 comes unstuck as well. Now that is Peroni, Luigi Peroni, going off, and in AM class, not that that really matters the podium places here in this stage, but Franke now coming through turn one, current race leader, now 7 seconds away from Armani, and if that 0.7 strikes 0, then Armani could yet lift the winning trophy aloft here.
And the gap between Laura Van den Hengel and Lars Zanen for the last spot on the podium, just under 8.9 seconds. And remember, it's 5 needed.
8.3 now.
It was 1 second that Lars Zanen took out of Van den Hengel on the previous lap, as we see the moment for Luigi Peroni coming out of turn 5, skillfully getting it off the racetrack after that spin. He was down in 15th position, so doesn't make too many changes to our podiums for the day.
Skipping over the curbs here, Luca Franco, 6/10, but you know, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the final moments. Armani's really got to wrestle in the delta, but over the last lap, it was a 2:07.980 from Armani. You're talking approximately 1.1 to 1.2 seconds a lap quicker over the last lap was Pietro Armani. So he's got every chance to rumble this in. It's now 6.5, 2 minutes to go to obtain 0.5 of a second. It looks like it could be on the cards. Franke coming under fire, and the next 2 minutes could decide either win or a P2 here in this stage. And they're going to be so disappointed, having led a fantastic majority of this race, to now all of a sudden come unstuck due to not serving the correct amount of time during the pit stop. It's obviously going to, I can imagine, especially against their championship rivals, it's going to run very deep for this combination. But Armani now really going to work. Franke exits out of the final corner, about to cross the line once again with 1 minute and 32 still to run. And it looks likely this is going to be the final lap of asking.
Yep, will be gap 6.5 as it stands. Let's see what it is when they go over the when Pietro goes over the time, like 6.2. So we only took half a second out of him on that previous lap, which is a bit less than what he's done so far. But all he needs is that final quarter of a second now, and the victory will be Pietro Armani's. So both of them will be pushing to the absolute limit here. Bizarre situation we have here to determine the outright victor here at the first race in Paul Ricard for GT Cup Europe. And Luca
basically
Franke,
a qualifying session now.
It is now, yeah, effectively. They're separated on track. But if Armani continues to close him at that same rate and not, and you can see Frank has been given the message, use up all your track limits that you got left.
And try and pursue and take this victory home. But if anything, Armani's getting closer and closer. 6.2 still remains that, but of course we are in the middle sector, and it could largely look different coming into the final sector. Let's find out as to whether that is to be the case. 6.2 on the outset of sector 2 as now we watch as Laura Van den Hengel makes her way down towards the chicane at the middle point of the circuit. Babini has overtaken Nicholas Salins as well for Pro-Am second, but remember, of course, Babini also has a time penalty against his name.
And it looks like Laura Van den Hengel might be safe for the overall podium as well. 7.2 clear of Lars Zanen.
Yeah, which obviously will mean that they will stand not just on the top step of the Pro-Am podium, but P3 overall. But we've got to keep our eyes peeled on this battle, and now it's 5.9, so Armani is, as they will cross the stripe, your effective provisional race winner here so far, but he wants to make it official as they come through the final sector this time. Franke, of course, leading the way for such a long period of time. Fame's team look to be on yet another run here at Paul Ricard to extend it to 3 race wins this season. It looks like that's not going to be the case, as now Franca makes his way up towards the line, takes the checkered flag. He will cross the line first, but it won't be a victory, because Pietro Armani will come across the line, taking the victory, having been 5.5 seconds away from Franca. They are victorious here at Paul Ricard, and they level the playing field. 2 wins this season, equaling up the tally with Ian Rodriguez and Luca Franca and Simone Patrinicola and Luca De Marchi, and it brings the title fight that little bit closer.
Some very impressive car control from Pietro there as he celebrated the win. Incredible stuff there, and he knew it straight away. 0.488 of a second in the end was the difference once the penalty was applied, and Laura van den Hengel has come across the line with the penalty applied, still 7/10 ahead of Lars Zanen, so it is an overall podium as well as the Pro-Am victory for the Burgers Motorsport by Hans Weiss, with Laura van den Hengel and Paul Meyer. And then it is a second victory of the season as well for Leandro Martins and Dieter Schweppes in the AM category.
Yeah, third stop on the overall podium for Laura van den Hengel and Paul Meyer after achieving 2 second places prior to this one. This is their first third place finish this season, so credit to them for that. And for Ludovico Longoni, Pietro Armani, as we said, their second win of the campaign. Ian Rodriguez, Luca Franca have come second for a second time, making it 4 podiums this season in total, including the 2 race wins they've already captured through the course of this championship campaign. But Armani and Longoni now looking to close the gap to Rodriguez and Franca. Still a lot of work to do. They came into this round 17 points away from the top of the championship, which is currently being held by Rodriguez and Franca. Of course, with Lars Zanen and Goncalo Fernandez third in the title race, coming into this on 38. Only 1 race win lodged in their favour so far, but they also achieved a 3rd place finish prior to podiums to their name. Let's run through the results come the end of race 1 at Paul Ricard. It's Pietro Armani and Ludovico Longoni, your victors for the second time this season, ahead of Luca Franca and Ian Rodriguez in second. Paul Meyer, Laura van den Hengel, Pro-Am winners, and P3 overall, ahead of Goncalo Fernandez and Lars Zanen. We also have further down as well Dieter Schweppes and Nathan Brauns, Nicholas Salens, Ollie Webb inside the top 10 in P8, Fabio Babini 9th, Peter Furter in 10th, ahead of Giacomo Giabergia, Cosimo Papi in 12th, Florentin Sescu 13th, Luca Maria Antionesi in 14th alongside Ron Magnoli. We then have Cook and Falvey in 15th as well. Further down, we also have Luigi Peroni in 16th, Todd Souza finishing 17th, with H. De Mello out of the race, having pulled up with an issue with his tyre, and Franvel Bugliotti also having issues of his own as well, having been in the AM podium contest, but it went slightly awry, did it not, folks at home? But now coming into Parc Fermé, we have our race winner, the 22 of Pietro Armani, of course, who has had plenty of time spent in single-seater racing, once racing for the ART Grand Prix team back in the realms of the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine campaign. Now, of course, racing in Porsche competition this time, and has taken to it like a duck to water as well. Still a bright future awaits this young man, as we have seen many of them, including the likes of Kaz Havercourt in the past, who has gone on out of single-seater racing and moved on into Porsche Super Cup, for example, that is a main should we say, support series, supporting the Formula One World Championship. Pietro Armani, you never know, with successes like this, maybe he could find his way into Porsche Super Cup in the future. Still got a long career ahead of him, being a young man in this championship. And we'll be celebrating alongside Ludovico Longoni. What a performance from this partnership now, and it's a second win of the season for these two, as they look to try and take the championship fight to the likes of Franca and Rodriguez. But like I said, still very early days, a long way to go, Chris. Despite this victory being in place, the fact that Franca and Rodriguez ultimately finished second reduces the points deficit and damage to their championship lead somewhat.
Yeah, so only 3 points lost, and they've only actually, with this win, just moved to within a win's worth of points of that 91 crew. So it's still a rather healthy advantage that Luca Franca and Ian Rodriguez have in terms of the championship. Still a few races for Pietro and Ludovico to change that. Now, we've seen one driver doing that. I've never seen the duo version of that. That's very impressive.
That's called teamwork, folks. There's Luca Franca out of the car. Obviously, you can understand perhaps a little bit warm after that stint. It has been a very warm weekend here at Paul Ricard, as it always generally is at in southern France, as we now see. Of course, the celebration's still in full swing. There's Pietro Armani.
I will say, it's not the heat that gets you, George. It's the humidity.
Well, that is true. Well,
I'm British, I had to say that.
We had some rainfall, obviously, through the course of the race, which only adds to that humid element out on track at the moment as now the celebrations continue. Obviously, Longoni delighted. The Michelin hat now on the head of our race winner, one half of our race winners this weekend. Obviously, the other one just loosening his helmet strap. He'll be relieved to get it off, I'm sure. We spoke to Paul Meyer earlier on in the weekend, and he was telling me about his stint in the 12-hour race that he experienced with Creventic not too long ago, and he didn't have any drink. But he finishes on the podium again. Overall, it's Paul Meyer and Laura van den Hengel, not just Pro-Am winners, but overall P3 sitters as well. P2 for Luca Franca and Ian Rodriguez, who are still championship leaders, having come second, eventually beaten due to the fact that they sustained a penalty after not serving the correct handicap. Your winner is Pietro Armani and Ludovico Longoni, and they're standing by for an interview with Alfredo.
So we are with winners, Ludovico Longoni, Pietro Armani. Second time after Portimao, we didn't see you on P1, but now it's done.
Yeah, a lot of podiums, but the win was missing. So happy to be back here, and yeah, super happy.
Not the most difficult race, but it's never easy.
And okay, yeah, because it's too hot for us in the car. We managed the tires. We did a great job to manage the tires. Also, Ludovico did a good stint in the first stint. I was like 10 seconds behind them, but we take some gap for the penalty, and then we take the win.
Well done, guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Well, let's remind ourselves of what happened in race one at Paul Ricard in the GT Cup Europe Championship. Great start, of course, for Paul Meyer, keeping Ian Rodriguez at bay, coming through the first sector in the first few corners. Ludovico Longoni also in third, taking the early stint. There was some aggressive moves taken, the 53 being one of them as well. Of course, the combination of Lars Zanen and also teammate Goncalo Fernandez trying to open up their account this time around. Franvel Bugliotti also in the heat of the action. He would eventually come unstuck, though. However, his race taking a miserable turn towards the latter stages. Eventually, the 53 of Goncalo Fernandez walking right through the open door and would move his way through past the Argentinian later on. Of course, LMR Motorsport came under pressure as up the inside came the number 11 of Nicholas Salins and Steeners Longin. Of course, Longin in the car during this particular moment, and then the driver change window opened up. But this would lead to a penalisation for the likes of Luca Franca and his teammate Ian Rodriguez not serving it correctly, and neither would the car that came out behind them after the pit stop phase, Laura van den Hengel and, of course, Paul Meyer. They would both get penalised, eventually landed with penalties. A little swapper then elsewhere as well, as we see the drivers doing battle out on course. Eventually a move up the inside, this time from Pietro Armani on Laura van den Hengel, who did not really appreciate it to start off with after flashing her lights, but then it all came down to this. Luca Franca trying to levy the deficit in his favour, but the Delta failed him. He did not manage to grow the gap wide enough to consume the handicap, and therefore it's Pietro Armani and Ludovico Longoni, victors for the second time this campaign, and aura farming here at Paul Ricard. And now we move across to the podium celebrations and a wonderful visit to Paul Ricard to kick things off for the combination of Armani and Longoni. We mentioned, though, that despite this, still the points deficit is still enlarged, as now we watch as the Burgers Motorsport, the Hands of Ice Motorsport crew now stand tall on the podium. Laura van den Hengel and Paul Meyer continuing their route in the Pro-Am Championship, but standing P3 overall. Successful weekend so far. Luca Franco and Ian Rodriguez may have been hoping for the top step, but unfortunately getting the penalty would put them on the back foot, and therefore they'll have to obviously manage second place for now. But our eventual winners for the second time this season, it is of course Pietro Armani and Ludovico Longoni.
I've been doing some maths, George.
What can you tell us, Chris?
And actually, well, Ludovico Longoni and Pietro Armani have had 2 non-scores so far this season.
So when we factor in the drop scores.
So their net points are the same, but Ian Rodriguez and Luca Franco, I'll tell you after the anthem. So after that dramatic pause, I can tell you that Ian Rodriguez and Luca Franco have got 12 points to drop as it currently stands.
Yeah, obviously
so that means that technically the points gap is actually only 2 between these 2 crews, I make it. Of course, that means that Longoni and Armani need to be faultless throughout the remainder of this season.
Yeah, because they can't afford any further non-scores, basically, because they can obviously drop the 2 that they've already got, but now they need to be almost perfect for the remainder of the championship.
Yeah, or hope that Ian and Luca
have a couple of
issues there as well. But nonetheless, it's much closer than we think in terms of the championship. Great stuff out there. Paul and Laura are going to get a double dousing of champagne here because they've got the Pro-Am podium to come as well. But great performance from them, and their 3rd time on the overall podium this year. It speaks volumes to the level that they're operating as a Pro-Am pairing.
Yeah, and obviously Laura van den Hegel, much like, of course, we mentioned Fernando Navarrete moving over from Ferrari into Porsches. Laura van den Hegel joining us in 2023 and taking part in the Ferrari machine, then moving across to Porsches as well. Great to see her back, obviously taking part and really showing her very best. And no question, I think there'll be more of this to come in the near future. Great to see the fans in the grandstands as well, watching some fantastic racing. We also have the Pro-Am podium to come as well. Laura van den Hegel and Paul Meyer, of course, the winners in this one, and they'll be looking to grow their positions in the championship, very much alike those in terms of the overalls. Nicholas Salins and Steeders Longin, of course, coming second over the course of this race, and not forgetting welcome Ollie Webb as well, who managed to muster in a P8 and a P3 in Pro-Am overall.
Yeah, so great stuff with Ryan James there, the McLaren on the podium, which is great to see. It's a 4th podium of the season for Nicholas Salins and Steens Longin. Back-to-back podiums, in fact, as well, after race 2 in Hockenheim. But it is another fantastic victory, a 4th of the season. And it still remains. It's 4 wins, 1 second place, and 2 non-finishes as well. And yeah, hopefully that we hope to see Paul and Laura continuing this form. It's been great stuff, but be nice as well if some of the other guys would give them a slightly harder time in that fight. It'd be great to see.
Absolutely right. You just see that Nicholas Salins seen as long and keen to run off. Laura van den Hegel and Paul Meyer having far too much fun at the moment. Obviously, having already taken the champagne overall, they've just managed to do the same here in Pro-Am as well. And well done to the combination of Ollie Webb and Ryan James, the man from the States, obviously coming in conjunction with Ollie Webb, of course, from the UK, and bringing the McLaren Artura Trophy Evo to the P3 step on the Pro-Am podium. Next up, we do have Am Klaas and Dieter Schweppes, and of course, we'll be looking to stand tall alongside Leandro Martins, both of them having yet another fantastic season so far, and certainly been flying the flag in terms of the category this campaign. Came into this round 38 points in front at the moment at the top of the championship, but currently coming into this race, 9 points clear of H. de Mello in second, who was leading the AM fight for a grand portion as well. Franvel Bugliosi, who came in AM third coming into this round, of course, having the retirement. That's going to set him back here in the AM class fight. Let's run through those top threes then. Leandro Martins, Dieter Schweppes on top spot. Nathan Brawns and, of course, standing on tour with Nicolas van Dierendonck in second. And then, of course, we have Giacomo Gierbergia standing on P3 spot, P11 overall.
Yeah, so the second and third place drivers in the AM Championship not finishing there. Great news for Dieter Schweppes and Leandro Martins, who stretched their lead in that championship. It's the second victory of the season for them. Third podium of the season for Nathan Brawns and Nicolas van Dierendonck. And it's back-to-back podiums as well for Giacomo Gierbergia after he picked up his first one last time out in Hockenheim.
Absolutely right. Trophies now being lifted aloft by all our AM competitors that made it to the top 3 steps of the AM podium. And they'll be hoping for many more of these, that's for sure. The champagne now being sprayed. But folks, that brings an end to day 1 here in the GT Cup Europe Championship here at Paul Ricard. We're going to be back again tomorrow for qualifying 2 and race 2. Join us then. But from all of us here, it's goodbye.